Hello everyone, it is time for this week's live stream. I want to thank Rogers Reef Food for sponsoring this channel. I greatly appreciate that. Rogers Reef Food is a type of frozen food your fish can eat by chewing on a single spot and not having to chase it down through the reef because your pumps are blowing it everywhere. Coral Magazine, I am the executive editor of, and if you are not a subscriber but you own an aquarium, you should be subscribed. So do it right now while you're thinking about it. Coralmagazine.com/Milev23 will knock 5% off the bill, which is not much, but it saves you a few bucks, so you can buy some more fish food. If you aren't keeping up with it, or if you don't want to subscribe but you want to try it out, you can buy individual copies from my website. It'll cost you more, but I still appreciate the business. I offer one-on-one consultations if you need someone to talk to about your aquarium and you want to discuss what's happening and show me what's happening. You can just get me right there on video chat for an hour. I can help you out. Email me at sales@milevsreef.com. We'll schedule a time and day that's great for you, and we'll just see if we can get your tank back on track. So thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry I missed you last weekend. I was busy, but I am back. And, so listen. This week was interesting. I had a huge order that had to go out for our customer. I had to build 2 sumps for a 500-gallon reef that's in the local area. And one sump goes over the second sump. So the tank drains into sump number 1, which then drains down into sump number 2. And if you haven't seen pictures of that yet, it's all over my social media. And, I don't have them handy. I'm still waiting for my phone to upload a video right now that I can show you guys today of the reef that I filmed 20 minutes ago. And who knew that a 20-minute file would take forever to process on my phone before it'll begin uploading into the computer to where I can share it with you. But I spent, an hour today cleaning the glass super well. And then I wanted to show you these new fish. And I thought, well, let me throw food in the tanks so they're swimming around more excitedly. So you have something to look forward to, but it's coming up in a few minutes when this thing finally gets done. But, so let me tell you, that the sumps got out of the way, and then I think it was the same day, maybe, I got a text that I woke up to, and it's one of my local customers, a club member, and he says, Mark, I can no longer take care of my aquarium because I'm traveling much too much for work, and I'm looking to rehome all of my fish, and I was wondering if you'd be interested. And I just said, I don't know. And, because adding new fish to an existing reef, it's kind of tricky. And, I don't know. Usually I say no. But, he had sent me a list and I was like, oh, I really like these fish. And then I said to him, well, give me a few hours to think about it. And he said, well, the upside is that if you get these fish from me, I get to see them on the live stream. And so that kind of was in the back of my skull. At the same time, I was thinking I shouldn't be spending money right now, but this is a really good deal. And so I hemmed and hawed, and then I thought the trickiest part is introducing the new fish. Like, how do you get them into the aquarium without a lot of conflict? For example, and I've got my fish list here typed up, so I will be rattling off some information. I thought I had more fish in my tank, and I guess they've been dwindling away, and I've not been paying attention to the magic number. But just in case you're new or whatever, and you're just like, what's he talking about today? I have a 400-gallon reef tank, and the 400-gallon has been running for 12 and a half years. It's a very established mixed reef with SPS corals and LPS corals, and there's some leather, so I guess some softies. And so it's truly a mixed reef. And in the tank, I've got a Nassau tang named Spock, who I've had since August of 2004. So that means she is coming up on 22 years in my possession. She's probably 2 years old when I got her, which puts her around 24, 25 years old. I believe the Nassau tang species can live up to 35 years. So she's still got another decade ahead of her. And she's been with me for 2 decades. Crazy, right? More than 2 decades. In addition to her, I have a yellow tang that I've probably had for 8 or 9 years. A white-tail coal tang that I probably got 5 years ago. And I got an Achilles tang about 3 years ago. So there's 4 fish right there. I've got the 11 tangerine skunk clownfish, so that puts us around 15 fish. And there's a copper band, there's a coral beauty, there's a target mandarin fish that I got a few years ago. There's 1 remaining pajama cardinal fish, and I don't know if there's any others. I can't think of any more. I was thinking about them while I was sitting here the computer getting ready. And so that only puts me around 19 fish on a 400-gallon tank. And only 4 of them are tangs. Everything else is smaller, which is like no impact at all. But the new fish list was more impressive. So let me see. I need to at least have something to show you here. So first of all, I'm going to show you the buckets. So we'll do this. Don't look at that. That's not what I want you to see. Hang on a second. Or this. What are all these old pictures? Oh, these are all from last week. All right, so let's throw one of these pictures on here. Let's use... I thought I had another one, but I guess I don't. Well, I could throw this video on there. So... I'm kind of in the way. But whatever. And let me make sure the sound is off so it doesn't drive you crazy. These fish right now that have arrived, that are in safety stop, they showed up in a huge... There's multiple cameras. Who runs this show? This is pathetic. All right, sorry about that. These fish, he gave me a list, and I'll just read it down to you. So in there you have a Japanese pygmy angelfish, the Centropyge interruptus, a flame angel, an orani tilefish, a yellow tang, a purple tang, a white-tailed cold tang, in addition to the one I have, a Genicanthus angelfish, an ornate wrasse, a cleaner wrasse, a Midas blenny, a Bengai cardinalfish, and a couple of chromis. Then I also got a cleanup crew from him because that was all that was left in the tank, including this enormous Halloween urchin that is basically the size of an orange or a baseball. There is a couple of skunk cleaner shrimp in there. There was a blood shrimp, but it didn't make it, and some urchins, and some really, really big snails that are like bulldozers. So all of that happened. Now, I'm never going to be able to get rid of that video from the background, am I? What happens if we do that? I killed this video. That's right. Is it still sending? Did it send? It just gave up? No way. It was said processing. I don't know. Let me see. I mean, it said preparing. I don't think it's uploading yet. Oh, boo. Oh, sending. Here we go. All right, so that thing is happening. Let's come back to this. So he had basically 15 fish for me to add to my tank, and that seemed like a lot. For anyone. And then my thought process was like, well, normally introducing one new fish into an existing tank with a bunch of livestock that has their favorite hidey holes is going to be a little problematic depending on what the fish is. Sometimes you can put new tangs in an existing reef if the new tang's shape is different from the fish you have now. And so, you would put, for example, a unicorn tang could go with a yellow tang. There's no drama because they're completely different shapes. If you were to put a yellow tang and a purple tang, they're almost exactly the same shape, and that could be conflict. And I have a yellow tang. I had a purple tang for 20 years. I lost 2 Decembers ago, and so those two did get along fine. So him having a yellow and a purple that like each other going into my tank with my yellow was kind of iffy, but there was a potential it could work out. Then there was the problem with I have a white-tailed coal, and he has a white-tailed coal, so now I'm putting 2 in there. What if they're 2 males? I don't know. Would I get lucky that mine has to be male and his is female, or vice versa? I don't know. But it's not like I'm planning to have them spawn and grow tangs in my reef. That's not going to happen. That would be crazy. I've mastered those little fish behind me, but that's as far as I've got when it came to breeding. But if thinking about all the different conflicts that can happen, there is the chance that there's going to be an aggression mainly with the coals or with the yellows because they're identicals. And then also... he had I think I mentioned already. No, maybe I didn't. Yeah, I read all these off to you. The Flame Angel probably wasn't a conflict, but I have a Coral Beauty. So those are 2 pygmy angelfish. They should get along. They can get along, but I wasn't sure if it would go well. But then you add in the Genicanthus, which was, let me find out what that is, because it was told to me yesterday, and of course I keep forgetting what it's called. It is a... Watanabe. Very pretty fish. And by the way, that video did finally get on this upload. So we are going to drag it in here and create a scene and stick it on here for you. So let me hit this, and then we'll drag this on here. And I'm going to make sure there's no sound on this because Jack was barking. So this is a 20-minute video. I'm just going to let it run in the background, and I'll just hang out here in the bottom corner. And in a moment here, you will be able to see the, well, in a moment, in a minute or so, or 2 minutes, you'll start to see activity from me feeding the fish. And the tank is kind of blue. Sorry, that's the time of day it was in. I considered putting a filter on the phone, but, you know, when I was looking at it, it looked okay. Of course, now I'm looking at it, it's like, it's really kind of blue. Sorry about that. But you'll still see the fishes, and you can kind of see. Let's talk about conflict. Well, actually, let's not talk about any of that. Let's talk about safety stop, because that is actually a really important thing. Actually, I'm going to jump back to this. We're going to hold off on this video. Safety Stop is a product that I've been selling for a long time. It came out from Blue Life USA probably in 2010 or so. And this is a rapid fish quarantine system. And when the owner of the fish said, you know, hey, Mark, you know, I know you're going to use Safety Stop on these fish. That's fine. And he was right. It's just like when you buy frags from someone and you dip them to make sure there's no pests. It's the exact same thing when it comes to fish. We want to quarantine them. Now, I have not run a quarantine tank in in 16 years, a very long time, but I put every fish through Safety Stop. And Safety Stop is a 2-part bath. Each bath lasts 45 minutes. So if you get a brand new fish, you come home with it, you're going to put a bucket down in front of your aquarium, you're going to take the new fish with its water into the bucket, and then you're going to take some airline tubing and snake it down from your reef and let it drip into that bucket until the water volume doubles. Then the fish is acclimated. This usually takes between 20 and 45 minutes, right? Then at that point, your fish is ready, in theory, to drop it in your tank, but I don't. Instead, I put it through Safety Stop. So at that point, that fish that has been acclimating to my temperature, my pH, my salinity in the bucket where the water volume has doubled, now I can put that into bucket number 1 of Safety Stop, which is going to be formalin. Formalin is a little harsh, but this is an exact amount. It's probably like half an ounce that goes into 1 gallon of tank water, which you just, so, you know, we did the acclimation. I stole a gallon from my reef, put it in the bucket, 1 gallon, added the green part of this packet to create the formalin bath. I put an air stone in there, and if it's going to be a long time, I'll even, or in the winter when it's colder, I will put what's called a credit card heater in there. It's just a flat card that looks like rubber with a cord coming off it. There's no thermostat. It just keeps that 1 gallon from getting cold. Its job is to keep the water somewhere around 75, 76 degrees, which just means the water in the bucket's not going to cool off. I also take the bucket and I put it on top of a thick towel on top of my tile floor in the kitchen or the tile floor in front of the reef, so that way the cold floor does not cool the water in the bucket. So there's not a vapor barrier, but there's a fabric barrier that keeps that bucket stable. They got the heater in there, the air stone, and I put in my 1 fish. But today, or let's just pretend today was 2 days ago, today I have 15 fish that I need to put in Safety Stop. Can't put 15 fish in 1 gallon. That's insane. So fortunately, I sell Safety Stop, and I had more than 1 of these. I got 4 of these. And then I also used 2 of these buckets instead of just 1 bucket. So, and then I also, instead of doing 1 gallon, I filled it up to 2 gallons. So I had 2 gallons and then a second bucket, 4 gallons, 4 gallons of Safety Stop going at the same time. I've never done that before in my life. Now, the nice thing about Safety Stop is you can actually put your fish through there in groups. So you could put in, like, let's say you bought some anthias, and then you bought some clownfish, and you also got a puffer that might eat the clownfish or the anthias. You could put the anthias through part A, the formalin bath, and as soon as they come out and they go into part B, you can now put the pufferfish in part A, and then when B is done, those fish get out, and now the puffer moves to B, and then you put in, what did I say? Clownfish into part A, and you can go through. The stuff is good for about 5 hours before it just becomes essentially worthless. So if you were trying to cycle fish through it, you could do it in a more, it's going to take you all day because you're going to be doing 45-minute baths, another 45-minute bath, another 40. As you can see, it could take 3, 4, 5 hours to process a lot of fish. The other choice is to use a larger vessel, like a 5-gallon bucket. But then I remember when this product came out, and I was like, this goes in 1 gallon? And they said, yes. I said, what happens if you need more water? Let's say you have a big tank, and, I'm going to have to use, I don't know, 2 gallons. Like, then you could use 2 packets. And I felt like such a dummy. I was like, yeah, okay, the math checks out. That makes sense. So that day, the day I was doing this, I used 4 packets. I put 2 packets in one bucket, and then I put 2 packets in the other bucket, and this is part A, the formalin. And then I took the fishes out of this big container that I helped him carry into my house. It was a very, very large storage container. Probably had, I don't know, 20 gallons of water in it with all these fish. And he had a airstone bubbler on there to maintain oxygen. And, when he got the vessel into my house and we took the lid off, all the fish are swimming around and looking up and like, what's up? So, I got a chance to look at them all, which was cool. I didn't even take a picture. I didn't even think of it. I was more focused on, oh my God, these fish are beautiful. And there's so many of them. So, I got all the fish out into the 2 buckets. I set the timer on my watch for part A. And then I put these lids on top of the bucket so that way the fish can't accidentally jump out, especially when my water level is so high in the bucket. I mean, literally, this lid was a little bit underwater, to be honest, because it was always designed for, using 1 gallon of solution and not using 2 gallons. So anyway, it was more water, lid on top, none of the fish jumped. I had the air pump in there, or the air bubbler in there for both of the fishes, and I checked on them regularly. No one did anything weird. No one was trying to get to the surface or slamming against the lid trying to jump out because their skin's on fire. Nothing weird like that happened, which was good. And his fish were not sick. I mean, they were in an existing reef. Some he'd had for as long as 5 years. Others were a little bit newer to him, but I'm sure still for a few years. And I just felt like prophylactically, let me just remove any external parasites they may have on their bodies, and then, move on. So I went from that that video I showed you a minute ago. I've got another picture here to show you. So when it came to go from part A to part B, I decided to do this. So I'll go over here. I don't know. We need another scene. Let's just do that. So the second one, I went ahead and I made 4 gallons of part B, which is methylene blue. And then I moved my airstone. Actually, I might have put both airstones. I'm pretty sure I did one. I might have put both in there. I can't remember. No, it was just one. I used one airstone, and then I moved all the fish over. Some of them were very cooperative and just swam into the net, because, I mean, the bucket wasn't very big. And so the net was basically the width of the bucket almost, and so they really didn't have anywhere to go other than into the net or try to avoid the net. And I scooped out 3 and 4 fish at a time to put them in the methylene blue. At that point, they were again in another bath. This is a 45-minute bath, and then they were ready to go into the reef. So while I was doing all that, I was trying to decide how many of these fish are going in the reef. Where am I going to scatter these guys? I was playing with thoughts. I could put one in the frag tank or a few in the frag tank. I could definitely put some in the reef. I could put some in Caitlin's. Does anything go in this office tank here behind me? I don't know. I got to figure it out. But then as I was looking at the fish, I was like, yeah, I kind of want them all in my reef. So the only 2 fish from that group that I got from the 15 I got from him that were 2 true perculas, which I love. That was my first fish I got in 1997. I had a pair of those for 7 years. And then, no, longer than that, 12 and a half years, same age as my reef. I had them for 12 and a half years, and then, one day one died, and I think the other, oh my God, the other one is still with me. That is crazy. Wow. Okay, so let me tell that story, and then we'll come back to this story. Back in 1997, kids, I set up a 29-gallon aquarium, and I bought 2 beautiful clownfish called true perculas. I find them to be far superior to Ocellaris, and I've always loved their markings. I think they're just so pretty. I think, did I throw a picture on here that I can show you guys of Caitlin's reef? I'm looking at all the pictures. It's still on the phone. Let me grab it. So I had these fish. And one 1 second here. I'm distracted. Just gonna get that uploaded. All right, that's coming. These clowns were my first fish, period. I mean, I didn't get any fish before that. You know, no, I probably lied. I probably got a damsel because when I was a kid, you started a tank with a damsel and then you added the real fish you wanted if the damsel lived. And of course the damsel lived. So I got these pair of clowns. Maybe they were my second and third fish. And they were a pair. They were awesome. And they lived in the 29-gallon for 7 years. And then I got the 280-gallon tank, and they lived in the 280-gallon. And one day, after 12 and a half years of total time of having that pair of fish, I found the female that was an egg-bearing fish. I mean, it was laying eggs like clockwork every 2 weeks, a big patch of orange eggs. It was really awesome. I found it in a giant gel ball inside my aquarium. I'd never seen anything like it. Imagine a clear, viscous shape the size of a softball with a clownfish in the center just immortalized. That's what I had, except it was bloated. And I was shocked and dismayed, and I couldn't believe it, and I was super upset to lose essentially a first fish. And but the male was still okay. So I was able to remove this gel ball, and actually it didn't go so well. I was removing it from the tank, and I didn't know what the gel was. It was just this big orb. I was at that time I was vodka dosing, and the guy that wrote the article on vodka dosing, I contacted him and says, "Is there any chance this is like some super bacteria thing?" And he goes, "Oh yes, he basically was implying that I was saying vodka was this horrible thing that was destroying my reef. And I wasn't implying anything. I was asking questions because I didn't understand where this weird ball of mucus came from that I could see through like it was a chunk of ice. It was crazy, but soft and jelly. And so as I'm trying to remove it, it's kind of adhered to a couple of parts of the live rock. I'm pulling and pulling. I actually had this long metal tool that looks like scissors on the end, but has like an alligator mouth on the other. It's really, really long. And I had grabbed the clownfish and I was pulling and lifting the orb with the clown. You know, I'd kind of stabbed into the jello, basically, hold onto the fish, and was lifting this out, and I was going to put a net under it as I was lifting. But just as it came out of the water, the weight of this gel, it just collapsed back into the tank, and the gel went flying everywhere. And it was clear. So it was little chunks of it going everywhere. I'm like, I don't even know what this stuff is, and I just set it free. I did get the clownfish at least, but it was gone, and that was devastating to me. But the gel, I was going around with a net just hoping to capture clear stuff I can't see in water, and getting a few chunks, and others just kind of went in the back of the tank, and nothing came of it. It was nothing bad. I still, to this day, have no idea what happened or what it was, but I'm assuming it was a bacterial cocoon. But how could that happen overnight? I mean, this fish went from being out and about to literally in a ball like Mr. Freeze had hit it. It was the weirdest thing. The male continued to be with me, and then later went into the 400-gallon. And then the 400-gallon was up for 13 months and sprung a leak. And at that point, I built a new tank. Marineland was building a new tank to replace it, and that took 18 months. And so that male clownfish then went into the temporary 210-gallon reef tank that was lent to me to hold all my livestock while the 400 was getting repaired/replaced, which was repaired and then was even replaced because they did it wrong. And that is the tank I have now for 12 and a half years. As soon as that tank was up and running, I set that tank up with the anemone cube that you guys all know about and loved. And the anemone cube needed a clownfish, and I just happened to have one in the 215. So when I moved all my livestock out of the 215 and went into the 400, I then took the clownfish and the anemones. I had some rose anemones and other ones I'd had since 2003. They went into the anemone cube, and that male was by itself. All this time it had already become a female. And that female was in the anemone cube for a duration. And then my friend Tammy, who lives in Dallas, she was breeding clownfish. And I said to her, hey, listen, I have this anemone cube. I need a ton of your clownfish. And she had hundreds, maybe thousands. She had so many tanks running filled with clownfish. She was doing really good at it. Really well at it, sorry. And I talked with Matt Peterson and said, hey, I want to put 40 clownfish in this tank. And he said, what? I was like, I just think that would be awesome. And he was like, that's too many. 20. And I was like, really? That just seems like not enough. And he was like, 20. So I contacted her and said, look, I'm going to need 20 of your biggest clownfish. And I knew they were all tiny. You know, they always are because you're breeding them and they're small. And as they grow, you sell them away. And I had a couple of eels that I brought home on the plane from Denver's Mackinac. And they were living in the tank. And I didn't want these fish to be so small that the eels think they're food. And so I said, I need these larger clownfish. And so she ended up showing up at my house with, I think, 16 1-inch Ocellaris clowns that she called mochaccino because of their coloration. And those clownfish went into the tank and they kind of didn't know what to do with themselves. They were very confused. And then finally, 2 or 3 swam up to the female, the one I've had for so long. And they just kissed the side of her body. These little tiny fish, I mean, they were 1 inch and she was much bigger than that. They swam up and kissed her on the torso. And she was like, you know what, I like you guys. And she kind of took the brood and says, I'm going to accept you and not be mad that you're all invading my home, because it was 1 clownfish, all these, or at that time, probably 4 or 5 anemones, and a couple of eels. And I think there might have been, you know, some urchins and stuff, but not much more. But that night, that group of clownfish that I got from Tammy swam into a fishbowl. And we're down in the bottom corner while the lights were off, just staying in this ball. It was the neatest thing. I was like, oh, I love this. I wish they do it all the time, which they don't. They do it for protection early on, and then they become comfortable and they find their new home, which in this case would have been tentacles of anemones. And so anyway, that clownfish, it's still in my possession. And I didn't even think about that. It's just been kind of tucked away. You know, unfortunately, 3 years ago, I took down the anemone cube to replace the tile floor in my kitchen. And that got done. And then I ordered a new tank from Planet, and that got done. And then I said, okay, I'm going to build a stand for it. And they said, oh, we can do it. I was like, no, I'm going to build my own stand. And I just took, it took forever. And I finally got that tank on the stand in the kitchen in January. And here it is, April. It hasn't been plumbed in yet because the magic bulkheads I want, these fancy ones I like from Octo, they're still out of stock. And it sounds like an excuse. It's just what I want for this new build. And I thought I'd get them 2 weeks ago, and then I got a shipment last week, but they didn't include the ones I needed. So I called the supplier yesterday and said, any update on my bulkheads, and I need something else. And he said, I'll find out, but he didn't reply. So maybe in a week I'll get those bulkheads. So probably the middle of April I can get the anemone cube operational, which would be really exciting. And then I can move my original clownfish that was a male that became a female that adopted 14 or 16 clownfish that's still living in the temporary tank behind the reef that you see occasionally on social media. It'll go into this glorious tank that's been waiting. That I need to take the dust off the surface of it because it's been so long. Anyway, all of that to say that I have a couple of true Perculas in Caitlin's Reef. I'll just throw them on this screen. And they are there at the top. And you can see the lemon peel angelfish in the background. And you know what? I really think that is going to work out. I think that the lemon peel is going to be out in the open more frequently now because it's out, especially during feeding time. But all day, it kind of just stays behind the rockwork, or it circles out, and then it kind of goes back, and it's always hiding. And it's not really out and about, and so that tank's been feeling kind of boring. And I would like it to have a little bit more visual... I don't even know what the word is I'm looking for. Visual... desire? I just want it to be appealing, and it's been kind of eh. And now that the clownfish have been in there for 2 days as of this evening, I'm thinking I should put an anemone in there for the clowns. And I wrote to a small group of friends and said, hey, I'm thinking about putting an anemone in. They're all like, no, you have anemones in every tank you own. I was like, I know, but these clowns, they need a pretty home. And I just happen to have a few spares. So you may end up seeing one of my speckled orange and green anemones in that tank soon for these clownfish to call home, because that leather is kind of boring. It's not very interesting. As a matter of fact, that leather doesn't open up very much, and I'm pretty sure it's because of the lemon peel probably nipping at its polyps. Okay, so all of that storytelling just to tell you how I moved 2 fish over. But what about all the ones that were in the blue safety stop? Okay, when all those fish had finished their second bath, now they are essentially ready to go in the tank. Normally, I would take my brand new fish that I've put through safety stop. It's been acclimated, it's been treated. Then I would put in the peacemaker for 3 days before I put it in the tank. And that way all the fish can see it. No one fights. There's no conflict. I put food in the reef. I put food in the peacemaker. The fish eats the food I'm giving it, hopefully, and the other fish are eating, or it watches the other fish eat and says, okay, I'll eat it too. And anyway, they learn about each other's existence without any way to hurt each other for 3 days. But I have 13 fish here. I can't put 13 fish in a peacemaker. I can't quickly build 5 peacemakers. I mean, all of that's just insane. So instead, what I chose to do was I just said, I'm going to move them from safety stop into a rinse and then immediately into the tank. So I've got this one picture here that is really kind of cool. And this reminds me of something I saw at a fish store once. I'm just going to throw it on top of my face. So here is my bucket of glory. All 15 fish are in this bucket at one time because it was rinse water. The water, the fish came out of the medicated bath, the methylene blue. And at this point, I can't just take them out of the blue and put in the reef without putting them through one step of clean water. So I filled up this bucket with, I don't know, a couple, it's not quite 2 gallons of water there. It's a little bit less. And I'm just quickly moving the fish out of the methylene blue into the rinse bucket. And they were in this bucket for maybe 3 minutes. So don't sit there and think what a horrible thing to do, because they were just being moved from one location to the next. And I assure you, this is not harmful in any way. They were not freaking out. They were not attacking each other. They were all just like, ooh, what's happening next? This is kind of fun today. It's like a roller coaster at Mark's house. So what you're looking at there, and I did count, there's actually 15 fish in this picture. The fish were in the bucket. I put the bucket on the front of the walkboard of the reef, and then I was moving them over either with a net or by hand into the reef one after another. The smaller fish I was able to obviously move with my hand, which was fine. Let me just show this right here. It's a good spot. The larger ones went in, and I was just putting in a fish like every minute or less than a minute, like every 30 seconds. Here's a new fish. Here's a new fish. Here's a new fish. And my reef was kind of like, what is happening? Okay, I guess we're doing this. And that was my thought. Because again, conflict between fish is something that we really care about. If you buy something nice and, it's really pretty and you're super excited and you come home and then you put it in your tank and 2 or 3 of your other fish in the tank decide to bully it and tear it to shreds, you're offended, you're upset, you're scared for the fish. That's a thing. And so we try to avoid conflict in our tank at all times. At the same time, we do need to get the new fish in the tank somehow. I've seen people do different things over the years. I came up with the peacemaker because I felt like it was something that the hobby was missing. And all that is an acrylic box with holes drilled in it on 4 sides. You suspend it in the middle of the tank, and water just flows through it. I mean, gently. There's no flow in the box, okay? It's just water's moving through it because there's holes all over it. And the flow in the tank is navigating those holes, but the fish stays safe and intact. I've seen people take a big sheet of egg crate and they would divide their tank and put the new fish behind it, or they'd put egg crate in a corner and create a triangle space and drop in their new cool their new cool angelfish. I was thinking of a lemon peel, but it was something else. It was an angel. And they did it where nothing could see it, it couldn't see anything, and then finally after, a week or so, they removed the egg crate and let the fish swim in and hope they wouldn't fight. In the case of adding many fish to an existing reef, there's still the chance there's going to be problems, but the nice thing is I felt like because I'm putting in so many at one time, it's almost like, who am I supposed to pick on first? Like if the yellow tank says, I'm going to be a bully, I'm going to attack everything in sight, well, there's something in sight every way I look. How much can I possibly control this crazy crowd? And, it can't. And in my situation here, now we'll go back to the video that I was showing you before, because, it's, we've got, you can see Spock swimming by right there in the front, the biggest fish in the tank. She's the whale. You can see a couple of yellows in the back. There's my Achilles. There's the yellow-eyed coal tang with the white tail cleaning algae off that feeding clip. There's some skunk clownfish in the foreground. There's a tilefish on the left right over my head, basically, and there's another clownfish there. But in a couple of minutes, I'm going to throw in some pellet food in this video, and you will just see a lot more activity. And you'll be able to see there's the pellet food blowing around. I can see it in the dark area. And so here comes the Genicanthus. What I call that thing again? I already forgot. I'm the worst. And it takes me a while to remember a name. Watanabe? I think that's what I said. So that's a nice, larger angel, but not one that becomes enormous, that can swim in a reef and not harm corals. The flame angel was in an existing reef tank with corals already, so I wasn't worried it was going to pick on my corals because it already was living with corals. Flame angels are a tricky fish, and they're not as easy to acquire as they were back in the day. And I had a rule or a system of I had methods of adding flame angels. Oh, by the way, that's a little aggression. You're going to see that a couple times in here. The Achilles and the yellow, especially the Achilles, is still not a big fan of the purple tang. But the first night, the yellow and the Achilles were going after the purple tang quite a bit, and the purple tang is smaller than my copper band, so it's not a big fish. And it was staying in that upper right corner of the reef tank, and I felt bad, and I thought, let me scoop it out and put it in my frag tank where there's just algae and nothing there, and it'll just be fine. And it didn't want to get in the net. I mean, I tried, and it swam away. And then it got attacked again, and it was in the upper corner. And I was like, let me try again. And the fish swam away, went down into the Gorgonian. I was like, all right. And I thought, I mean, at some point I'll have to get super aggressive if I really want to catch this fish. You know, basically give it no choice, or it's going to work out. But that was the first night, and I knew it was so early in the game. I had to give the fish time to at least see if this was an ongoing issue, or if it was just, I don't like you right now, but I'll tolerate you later kind of a scenario, which is ultimately our hope. You know, we want everyone to get along. So I'd lost my train of thought because that thing that happened. Oh yeah, flame angels. So my rule with flame angels is this: if you get a flame angel, it has to live past several benchmarks. It has to live past 2 days, then it has to live past 2 weeks, and then it has to live past 2 months. And if you can get past those 3 benchmarks, usually you're going to keep that flame angel forever, which is great. And then there's still a 50-50 chance that the flame angel is going to pick at your corals. 50% chance it will, 50% chance it doesn't care about corals whatsoever. I feel like in a tank that has plentiful food, the angelfish is less inclined to go after corals, but I did have a flame angel a long time ago. I think this was in my 280-gallon tank, so I've been between 2004 and 2010, and I'd bought a really, really pretty Montipora digitata. It was a German digitata. It was basically a tan-colored stick with bright blue polyps. And I was like, oh, it's so pretty. And I put it in my tank, and the next day it was bone white, and I was really mad. I went to the fish store, and said, you sold me a bad frag. And he was like, no, I didn't. I was like, yes, you did. The thing died in less than 24 hours. This is literally your fault. And the guy says, I'm going to give you one more piece, but after that, that's it. We don't do trade-ins. And I was like, fine. So he gave me my frag. I came home. I took the dead one out. I put it in the exact same spot. And then I was sitting back watching the tank, and the flame angel went up to it and just hammered away at that new frag and ate every polyp. And I was like, oh, he didn't sell me a bad frag. My flame angel loves blue polyps. And I was like, all right, that's on me. And, I don't think I apologized to the fish store owner. I don't think I had the guts at the time. I was too embarrassed for being mad at him in the first place for me to say, hey, turns out it was my fish. But that was a long time ago. This flame angel, like I said, has been in his tank with no problem, and I've got tons of coral in there anyway, so I'm not really too concerned. Obviously, whenever you introduce a brand new frag, there's going to be a chance that some of your fish may show some interest in it. That is completely normal. They may even nibble at it a little bit to see what it tastes like, but they may not. They may just say, whatever, no, I'm waiting for the next dump truck of food you're going to pour in here, that comes in later in the day, because I am guaranteed a nice big meal at that time. So we've got 4 angelfish in my reef at this point. the one I didn't really go into much was the Japanese pygmy angelfish. It's in there somewhere, and it's been swimming around, and it's really pretty. Now, it does not look like Flare, the one I had gotten a few years ago that went in Caitlin's Reef. The whole reason I set up Caitlin's Reef was to hold that Japanese pygmy angelfish, and after just under 2 years of age, it just one day died suddenly, mysteriously. And the only two ways it could have died was either it ate some of the dinoflagellates that was happening in that tank, which are toxic, or it got hit by the pistol shrimp in that tank, which then, gave it brain damage, I guess, because it was basically a completely normal fish to a Saturday. We did a live stream, and then after the stream, I'm out there looking at the fish, and it's kind of hanging out near the rock and not swimming around like it always does. I mean, this was a fish that never stayed still. It was always moving, impossible to photograph, and it was kind of hidden by the rocks. I'm like, what are you doing? And then I put food in the tank, and it didn't come out to eat the food, and I thought, well, that's weird. And then I'd say like 20 minutes later, it was down on the sand on its side. I'm like, what's happening? And then within the hour, it was gone. And I was just like, so I have no idea how it died. So when my friend contacted me and says, I'm willing to sell these fish, and I have a Japanese pygmy angelfish in there, I had a huge hankering to buy his fish at that point because of that specific one. And I didn't really want to just buy one fish from him necessarily because he had a nice list. I liked the idea of yellow tangs, and look at these guys swimming together, just getting along like they've been together for years. Both yellow tangs are both wild caught. I've had mine for about 8 years. He's had his for 5. He must have gotten his just before Hawaii closed, or maybe it was from the wild that had nothing to do with Hawaii, some other place in the ocean where they were able to capture it. But now I've got those 2 in there. The purple tang is small. The first night, like I said, it kept getting chased into the top corner, and one side of its body had a lot of white marks. But the next day, no marks whatsoever. I mean, it wasn't scores. It wasn't like slices, even though the Achilles and the yellow tang have scalpels on their tail to where they can defend themselves or be aggressors. No, it was just white. I mean, maybe it got rubbed, but it didn't get cut. And the next day, there was no markings whatsoever. It was just purple on both sides. And I was like, man, that's just really remarkable how they can do that. So it's still getting used to the other fish in the tank, but it's also swimming around. It's going for food. It's getting chased away from food. I put food in other places to give it an opportunity to get food, because I want to make sure that fish does not become thinner and unhealthy because it's got aggressors that are giving it problems. The whitetail coal that I own is being a bully to the whitetail coal he owned, and his is bigger and thicker than mine. Yet mine is like, no way, buddy. So it right now is retreating into a spot basically right above my forehead there in that area of the rocks. There's a spot there where I used to have a pair of Bimaculatus anthias that lived in that hole, and now the whitetail is in there for now, but it's also coming out. And I'm sure giving some more time, these guys are going to be fine. Because if mine really wanted that other fish dead, it was going to be, that kind of a death match to the end, it would go in the hole and go after it and chase it everywhere. I mean, it would just be this constant battle. No matter where you go, I will come after you. I will find you, a very Liam Neeson type thing. That's not what's happening. It's more like that fish is like, I'm just going to stay here, be cool, dude. And the other one's like, all right, I'm going to swim off here and eat some algae. And then, it'll come out and kind of does a little bit of a, showing off, let it know it's in charge. And then it goes back. The Achilles has never really been an aggressive fish in my tank. It's shown a little bit of aggression towards some fish, but very minimal. But since the new fish came in, it's being a little bit more dominant, but really only to that purple tang. So we'll just have to give it time and see how it all plays out. But I have good expectations. I'm not thinking this is not going to work out. I think it's going to completely work out, and it's craziness. For me to hold a bucket with, thousands of dollars worth of fish in one puddle of water was a really neat moment in my career of being a reef keeper, because I'm so used to just getting a few. Even when I set up the 400 gallon the first time, back in 2011, I went to Frank's Tanks and I said, look, I'm going to want all these fish from ORA. I want all captive bred fish. And I want 3 of this, and 3 of this, and 3 of this, and 3 of this. And I ordered something like 27 fish from ORA, but they were all little tiny things, and I dropped them all in the tank, and they all were they were bagged I think I got them. Like, he ordered them in. He just let me know they're here. He didn't even have to even release them in his tanks because it was a custom order or a special order. And so I just brought everything home and I acclimated everything, safety stopped everything, and everything went into the tank. But they were all small. And this was a little different because there was some medium-sized fish. But you can still see, I mean, and this video is still going. I mean, this is a long video. We're only 10 minutes into a 20-minute video. So you're not seeing the same things over and over. Whatever you're seeing, it's new. The tilefish is really cool. I've never kept a tilefish. I've never had interested in a tilefish. But at the same time, I knew it was a really cool thing to acquire. And as I was watching it yesterday, it was in the back of the tank behind that coral that's above my head, way at the top in the very back corner. And it was hanging out near the top, and it has some really pretty markings. I mean, this video, you can't really tell, but it's got yellow on its back, and it's got a stripe. But its head is sort of like the head of a whale, or the head of a dolphin, sort of. Not a bald-nosed dolphin, but it just kind of makes me look at, it's some kind of other sea creature. So it's new to me. It's neat. I kind of like it. And this fish is, it's funny because what apparently it does is it blows water on the sand to make something come out of the sand so we can eat it. So instead of a sand sifting fish, I have a fish that blows on the sand. And the owner told me it also may squirt out of the tank, squirt water at you, which is kind of funny. I have a thing on the front. Right now in this video, there's a big piece of black foam board. It's just a way to keep the light from blinding me, but at this point it's a splash guard, so I don't have to worry about getting squirted on by this fish. But as long as the fish stays low in the tank, it's going to be totally safe, and it'd be able to enjoy things. Also, there's a cleaner wrasse now. I had one a while back. Unfortunately, it jumped out of the tank, and then I was looking at getting lids from Top Lids. I feel like this conversation with them was probably 2 years ago, and I just never followed through on the transaction. I went through all the legwork. They just needed some final measurements. It's time for me to get a hold of them on Monday and say, hey, guess who's back? Mila's back. I'm going to need those covers. And that way, I don't have, an unfortunate incident, have a fish on the floor, because now I've got a zillion fish. Mathematically, the tank now now think about this. The anemone tank, even though it's not running right now, there's that temporary tank behind my reef. That's all part of the system. So when you talk about a total number of fish, it's not just the fish that were in the 400, but it was the fish in the temporary tank as well that's plumbed into the 400. So the 400 had 19 fish, and then the temporary tank has about 13 fish in there. Maybe 14? I don't know. So 19 and 13 is 32 fish total in my tank. And I just added 13 more, so it puts me at 45 fish total for the reef. Now, that leads to the next step. How am I going to handle this bioload? Well, the tank's been fine. I haven't had weird issues with water quality. I've been using, what's it called? Dang it. Why do I not think of it right now? It comes from Glass Aquatics. They make these different phytoplanktons, and I've been using those for the last couple of months. Not as consistently as I'd like, but they're the only phytoplankton I've been putting in my tank for the last few months. One's called Texas Tea. Sorry, there's 3 of them. And anyway, I've been putting that in my tank, and you store it in the fridge. And so that's been going in, and the corals are doing really well. They're really pretty. So I feel like it's beneficial to the tank. Now, the one downside my tank has had for a long time is my nitrate level is too high. So last night, a year ago, someone gave me something out of his garage. He needed some help with a greenhouse project. And he needed me to cut out polycarbonate on my CNC machine for his greenhouse. And as a thank you, he says, here, you can have this. And so he gave me this. Now, it's in 2 pieces, so I got to be really careful picking it up, because I don't want it to fall apart. I took the screws. Everything's been, soaking and cleaning since last night. So this right here is a coralline reactor. And this is a German calcium reactor that's been around forever. And it's made of some Schedule 80 material up here. It's got an Eheim pump on the top. There's a bubble counter. I already have a calcium reactor. So why do I need this? So I'm going to make it a sulfur reactor to remove the nitrate from my tank, or to get it under control, because it's just too high. And I just added more fish, which means I'm going to be feeding twice as heavy, which is just going to make the nitrate even worse, which eventually will start causing chaos in my reef that lives in spite of me. I mean, you guys know that. That is the saying. My reef lives in spite of me. So I got on the phone last night with Steve Wiest. He's in my contacts, and I just called him up out of the blue and said, hey, are you willing to take a phone call for me right now? And he was like, yeah, sure. I said, I want to set up a sulfur reactor, and I know you run one. Can you just basically give me the rundown? Just be a mentor for me for this one thing. And he was like, absolutely. So he talked me through the whole process. He explained what to get. He even told me what he buys. I ordered it from Amazon last night. It arrives tomorrow. But let me give you a little bit of the information that I gleaned from him last night. If you've never heard of a sulfur reactor before, because there's lots of ways to control nitrate. And one of his first recommendations is like, just change a ton of water and get them under control first, and then set up the sulfur reactor. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I just want to solve the nitrate problem, because everything else is really doing well. And so he says, all right. He said, you got to keep an eye on it. And I said, okay, well, I know they take about a month to kick in. He says, that's not true at all. He said, in a week, you're going to see a change. I'm like, really? And so you have the sulfur media in this reactor that has very slow flow. I mean, basically, you're trickling water through the reactor and out of the reactor. So water's going in through a dosing pump and coming out the other end in a gentle stream, okay? Not flow, not bubbles. Not drips. It's a stream, according to him. And I'm fine with that. That's how I used to run my calcium reactor. And the sulfur reactor is essentially the calcium reactor without the CO2. All you do is fill this thing up with sulfur. And then he made another recommendation to use some reborn media. I'm going to use some on the bottom. I'm going to put the sulfur in the middle. I'm going to put more reborn on top. Now, the reason I'm putting on the bottom is because the bottom plate where the water flows has holes, and the sulfur beads are kind of small, and I want to keep them in the middle. So I'm going to use the reborn as kind of an obstacle to keep the sulfur where I need it in the center. And then it's very buoyant. It will drift up and it'll clog the hole where the water's supposed to go out. So putting a reborn on top keeps that sulfur in the middle. And then Steve said a really cool thing about doing this is if something goes wrong with your sulfur reactor, like for example, the power goes out and there's no flow through this thing for even a little, essentially, if there's no flow going through it for too long, which could be 30 minutes, it could be 3 hours, I don't know. But basically, you want to keep this thing always movement. Never let it go stagnant, okay? That's the rule. If you have a power outage, you get it on a generator so it keeps circulating. And I understood. And he says, but the nice thing about using reborn is that the reborn will turn black. So you have a visual indicator that it's gone wrong. And he says, whenever that happens, I just throw it all away and I fill it up with more media, more of the sulfur, and start it up again, and it gets going in a few days. I'm like, okay. Bacteria is going to live in this anoxic area, with this very low oxygen area, and they utilize the sulfur, the bacteria do, to consume the nitrate. And I know many people have used these things for many years. It's like the one thing I've never tried to control nitrate in my tank. Never. And it's the one that has been recommended so many times. Just do this, Mark, and you'll be happy forever. And I know, I just never got off my butt to do it. I've done biopellets, I've done vodka dosing, I've done water changes, I've done, the reset of my tank where I do a deep cleaning of the sand bed and the nitrate comes way down. But then over time it builds up again to some pretty high levels. And my tank has been notoriously high for a long time. And I've been cognizant, I've worked on some, but it's still not getting anywhere better because I'm not really solving the issue. So I'm going to set up the sulfur reactor. And I'm excited to do it because it's something new I've never done before. And it's funny because, when you're in this hobby for a long time, you kind of think you've seen it all, you've done it all, you've heard it all. And this week, I got a new fish I've never even thought about, the tilefish. And everyone's like, oh, tilefish are cool. And I'm just like, okay, but I'm actually enjoying this little guy. He's neat. Actually, he's not that little. He could be 5-6 inches long. He's right there under the green coral, right there in the front of the tank right now. And then the Midas Blenny. It's a little one. It's really cute. And I see the way it swims around. It kind of reminds me of a little tiny eel in the tank. He's been cool to see. So I'm seeing new fish I've never purchased before that I acquired in this transaction. And the best part for the guy that I bought them from is he gets to see them on the live stream, so he gets to see his fish. And he liked the idea, and I kind of like that idea too. And he's like, he gets to watch them continue to live on. As long as I do nothing wrong, he'll get to enjoy these fish for a long time. So that's nice. I also got, I showed you guys, I got some cleanup crew critters. So I put some of the urchins in this tank behind me. And I put one in Caitlin's Reef just because. All the tuxedos, the little ones. And then the big Halloween urchin, this big giant thing, I put that in my Reef, and it immediately climbed up. And then today it was on that purple wall right there, eating stuff off there. It can eat coralline, it can eat the vermitids, I don't care. It can just go to town and enjoy it. So that's going to be a really cool urchin to look at in my tank. And then I'm going to try a new reactor I've never used before. And I'm just going to feed it with a Versa pump and let it drip into the tank. I kind of want to have this outside of my sump where I can kind of keep an eye on it. But according to Steve, even if it's in your sump, it's not going to do any harm. And I thought, well, what if something goes really wrong and all the sulfur gets into the system? And he said it's already in the system. It's not like some toxic thing. I was like, really? And he's like, it really is okay in the sump. So who knows? Maybe at some point. But I think initially when I get it, first started, I'll just do something external where I can keep an eye on it. And the nice thing about this reactor that I got, I was expecting, it's been sitting in a guy's garage forever. I mean, probably a decade. And it still had liquid in it. I kept thinking, when I crack this open, it's going to smell so bad. And it had no smell at all. And there was some kind of sand or media in there. I have a picture of it to show you guys. Because I know I just held it up in this little tiny window down here. Not very fair to you. So let's, I'm going to hit pause on this video. Oh, look at that. We actually did the full 20-minute lap. Okay, we're fine. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to the other scene that we were in before. And I'm going to get rid of this. And this is the reactor, the coralline reactor that you saw. And you can see the Eheim pump on top. So as I took it apart to clean it, I think, I don't even know what was in there. I mean, here, we'll zoom in. There's some kind of gravel. That could be crushed coral for all I know. But I have a feeling the stuff on the top surface isn't just dust. I think that might have been kalkwasser. Like he might have run this like a calc reactor instead of a calcium reactor. But maybe it was a true calcium reactor, but it's crazy that it had no sulfuric, any smell to it whatsoever. It was not clumped up. There's no black zones. It was nothing disgusting. I took it all apart. The top O-ring that's between the lid and the body was pretty squished, but I went ahead and I put silicone grease on it. I'm hoping that I can, when I set this up, it's not going to leak. And then I thought, well, for sure the pump on the top is dead. I got to get another pump. So I took the pump apart and cleaned it and plugged it in. And the darn thing works. Like, what? Nothing's ruined on this? So that was kind of cool. So here is another picture of me taking it apart in the backyard. There's the big O-ring. It's held together with screws and nuts. So all of those screws were soaked in a silicone lubricant overnight on a paper plate in the shed. And that way I scrubbed them clean. I tried to get off any rust off of them first. And then I soaked them in oil basically all night. So that way they will be a little more resistant to saltwater damage coming up. And like I told you, I took apart the pump and cleaned it all. I talked to Steve about, the tubing on there. We discussed how he thinks I need to run it. So in theory, tomorrow I can go ahead and put this thing together and see how it goes. What else do I have to show you? I'm sure you guys know what these are, but I got 2 of these little skunk cleaners. So they're inside my Reef right now, and they can clean your fish, which is kind of cool. If the fish swim up to them, they can pick them clean. But I've also got the cleaner wrasse. So my fishes are going to be the cleanest fishes in Fort Worth. And then this is that Halloween urchin. and it's in a net, a large net, in my hand. So I don't know if you can, I mean, look at the size of that thing. It's pretty big. And he says it is very pokey, so don't touch it. So I actually was very cautious. I mean, obviously it could poke me through the net a little bit, but that was a pretty fine mesh, and so I didn't feel like I was getting stabbed. But I did want to get at least one photograph to give you a sense of scale, because the thing is big. So that's that. Let's see. So that's kind of the story about adding a bunch of fish to an existing reef tank. I hope that that inspired you. While he was here, he says, Mark, why do you have all these other tanks? Like those guys back there, that one right there. There's a little one over there with the lights off right now. And then there's this tank over here with, I don't know, 100, 200 more fish in it. Well, all those guys behind me, some of those guys are for sale. And then some are going to go in a new exhibit. And then these over here will become for sale too. They're going to go on the website. They're going to be called Milev's Muggles. And if you want to get some of these rainbow fish and put them inside a low flow tank, like an exhibit that looks like a refugium, that would be a great spot for them. They can be in full salinity. It's pretty cool. And I just placed an order with Reef Nutrition that hopefully I'll get in about a week. And the idea will be that for a flat price, you get 10 of these fish shipped overnight with the food they eat for a flat rate of $250. And I'm hoping people will say, I love that idea, I want that, and I'll be able to sell them. And I just like the idea of providing you with the same food that they're eating now, so that way you can continue to be successful with them. Now, these fish behind me right now are in a lower salinity than we keep in our reef tank, but I did put these in full salinity at 35 ppt and completely fine. And this is not me forcing it to be a salty fish. It's a brackish fish that can handle full salt, so it can literally live in the ocean. They could be, or they, well, I'm gonna say could be found. I think are found in the mangrove roots. You know, where mangroves are reaching into salt water and growing into trees, and they are absorbing the water from the salt water and exuding the salt off their leaves, and then the rainforest effect happens, rinses the salt off their leaves, and these plants grow into these enormous trees. But the root systems where the fish, these little fish, live and lay eggs and make more of themselves. Lay eggs. Cast eggs. Spit out eggs. I think they lay eggs. Like a chicken. Yes, I said it. So I hope you thought that was cool. All right, let me go see what was going on in the chat, because I didn't really look into it too hard. Let's see. Okay, first of all, we'll jump to this really quick. Ex-Cali Tony, who no longer lives in Cali as far as I can tell, says, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I can never find the live stream at the start, but I'm here now. So this live stream tends to start at 2:08 p.m. Central Time, if I'm on time. And today I was probably 6 or 7 minutes late, if I remember correctly, because I was waiting for that file to upload, and it wasn't happening, and so I told it to stop, and then it started all over again, and I was like, oh. And so I was like, all right, let me just go ahead and do the show. But I do the same thing. I watch other people's videos, and I don't always catch them at the beginning either. You know, if you can tune in at the beginning, you can. I know that subscribing is the first step to the channel, and then clicking the bell should give you a notification and probably an email that says, ding, Mark has just started a live stream. That should be what happens. But I know some channels way bigger than mine that are saying that their followers are not getting notified that there's issues with YouTube. So a lot of times I just look up my favorite YouTubers and I just go watch their videos. That's what I do, rather than worry about being there. But this is the time to be tuned in, because you can interact with me, which is kind of fun. And then William says, I love the Reef. It's a great site. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then Hillbilly Reefer says, I like the stream in front of the Reef. The office is fine, and I realize how much easier it is for you, but the view of the Reef is still the best way. I totally get that. I found that, I mean, look, I did it for years. I sat in front of the Reef, and the Reef never looked good in the background, because to light me properly and then light the Reef properly was a challenge. And finally, I did find a color spectrum that worked, but I was in focus and it was blurry, so you really weren't seeing anything. And if I made it in focus, I was blurry. So there was this whole thing. So then the other choice, and I did it for a while, I would run the video of the Reef in my background, and I would green screen myself in front of it so I was in focus. So now you had this close-up of the Reef, and I did that for a while, and I just got away from it. And then finally, I installed lights here permanently. This whole setup in front of me. This is 3 screens of monitors and the microphone and everything. It's all here. It's all self-contained. And so for me, instead, it's just easier for me at this point to put the video up and have me just chat to you guys and show you the latest. And I'm giving you current video, but at least it's fully in focus. And the next time I do the video, I'll change the lighting on it so it looks a little bit better on camera, because I know it was pretty blue today. Santana Reef says, I'm selling my home in New Jersey and I'm considering Texas. Any locations to consider or to stay away from? I know it's not a hobby question. No, but okay, so Austin is always considered the up-and-coming hotspot, especially for younger people. I hate Houston, so I would never suggest that. That would be a not go-to spot, only because the humidity is insane. And I really didn't like the tolls. The tolls were really expensive there, like really expensive. I haven't done it in a long time, but I remember I went from one side of Houston to the other, and I think I paid $18 in tolls, and I knew I had to go back, which was going to double it. And if you had to do that every day, that is way too much money. And I do know there's tolls in New Jersey, so you're familiar with them. But if you can live in a spot that's not hammering away at your bank account just because you're driving on the freeway, I mean the tollway, because it ain't free. I mean, come on, let's be realistic. I like Fort Worth better than Dallas. The area north of Dallas, which is called Plano, that used to be the hot spot, like as in, the wealthy lived there, and it was really, really nice. I don't think Plano is as nice as it used to be. If you're wanting to be more rural, we have, other areas like Tyler, Texas, but it's really 2 hours from everything real. So it's kind of if you like forests, okay, that Tyler is a good place to be. Galveston, again, you're going to deal with humidity and stuff, but you're near the ocean, so you can just get out there and have a good time. San Antonio, it's pretty, but it's huge. It's sprawling. When you look down from above, I think there's 3 circular freeways, basically the size of a sombrero. And it has SeaWorld. So if you want to see SeaWorld, you want to live near it where you can go to it frequently with your family, that's kind of nice. But for me, Fort Worth has always been home. I've thought about all the different places I could live, and every place I could think of had a problem or something wrong with it. I was like, you know what? I'm fine where I'm at. I would say that Texas is more affordable living-wise compared to New Jersey, or definitely places like California. Our electricity isn't as expensive as like California is, for example, but it's getting there. Prices have been rising, which is not great. But this town, the one thing. So I've lived here since I was 17. I've been here forever, and the only thing, and I moved here from California, and I learned early on that people talked slower here, and that drove me crazy. I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, just get to the end of the sentence. Just finish your thought. And they would just be telling me that story so extra slowly. And I'm just like, why? Why are you so slow? And that was a real hard one for me to overcome, because I was a rapid talking person from Cali. But I don't know that I noticed that as much. I'm not saying that I talk slower. I don't think I do at all. But I do know there's people that talk faster than I do. And, I'm trying to also educate. So I try to slow down my trying to think of the word, cantor, is that the right word? Where you're speaking in a certain rhythm, but at the same time, everything, like I said, I just like everything's here. We have a major airport. We have 2 airports here. There's DFW and then there's Dallas Love, and out of either of those, travel gets you wherever you need to go. DFW is international, which means that you can go pretty much anywhere from there direct instead of having to do connecting flights, except Fiji. When I did the Fiji trip, I had to go to California, spend a few hours, or technically something went wrong, so I spent 24 hours, and then I hopped a plane all the way to Fiji. That was fun. But, yeah, I would say Fort Worth is a place to be. Plus, you can see my reef. But I'm sure there's other towns I didn't include. My son lives in a town called Temple. He seems very content down there, but he does mention often, I think I want to move to Fort Worth again. And this is where he was born, so maybe that's why. Maybe he just likes it. There's more here. Because I know he and my daughter-in-law, his wife, they come to Fort Worth to do things because they enjoy this town. And I don't hear them say, I come to Dallas. They say, I come to Fort Worth. So that tells me a lot right there. Plus, the best Chinese food you can get is less than a mile from my door. And Sean says, friends don't let friends reef without a sulfur denitrifier. You know, I actually like that. I might steal that phrase one day, especially after I've gotten used to this one. I will mention also, Steve thought that the one I have is too small, but it is what I have, and I've never done it before. So if anything, I can learn from this. And if it ends up being unable to keep up with the needs of the tank, I can get a larger one and set that up as well. So this could be a practice, or it could be fine. We'll see. On his tank, he is running a 400-gallon system, I think he said, but there's displacement, so it's a little bit less water. And he's running 4 pounds of sulfur, and I only ordered 2 pounds because my reactor's kind of small. So I just want to see what it's going to do. And you know what? If it just brings the nitrates down to 50, it's already a win. But it could bring it down further. And then he explained to me if it starts to pull out too much, he gave me some advice on what to do. He says you might remove some of the sulfur, or you might have to add ammonium bicarbonate, which is something some hobbyists have been doing the last couple of years, which I think is insane, but it's to make sure your nitrate doesn't get too low. So I'm going to be learning how to do this thing, and I'm kind of excited about it. And then Williams says, in your experience, what reactors do you think are a must-have on a mixed reef tank? And do you feel it's okay to run them on a manifold, or should they be on their own pump? Oh, I love a manifold pump because you can run multiple reactors off a single pump. You have one pump that does the job, and you have valves on each of the reactors for the different flow rates. And then which reactors are mandatory? Well, it comes down to what you're doing. Polishing the water would be carbon, so that's mandatory right there. Running a carbon reactor would be a really good thing to do, and I haven't done it on my tank in forever. I mean, forever. More than a year. And so my water is not crystal clear, but it's also not cloudy. I can look at the end of my tank, the full 7 feet, and I can see the other wall. It's not like I'm looking at soup and I can't make it out. It's very clear, but I know it could be 20% more clear if I did this. And another local hobbyist shut down his tank about a month ago, and he gave me an ozonizer that's sitting on my living room floor that I could run. Now, the ozonizer can help to also increase clarity of the water when I'm not running carbon. Carbon is only good for a few days. So if you're running carbon for a month or two, you're just doing nothing for a month or two. It's good for about 3 days. And I can tell you this because if you put carbon on your reef and you look at your reef really close the next day, it will look night and day from the day before. And for about 3 days, your water looks really, really clean. And then after 3 days, it just starts to taper off and go back to its normal look. So that right there tells me how long carbon lasts. And there's an article, there's a 2-part article on my website that was written by a guy. I can't think of his name right now, but I emailed him for permission years ago to put his article, I think it was James Harker, something like that. He wrote such a good article on carbon. It was the most logical article I'd ever read on granulated activated carbon in my life. And I was like, this is fantastic. And then one day the article disappeared, and I hunted it down. I hunted him down. I said, can I please put your article on my website forever so it never gets lost? And he said yes. And so it's been there. And if you want to learn everything you want to learn about carbon, read those 2 articles, and then you will know as much as I do. But one of the things that he recommended was very slow flow through the carbon, like 1 gallon a minute, which was crazy slow. You know, most of our pumps are 90 gallons a minute, or I'm sorry, 90 gallons an hour, or 200 gallons an hour, or 1,000 gallons an hour. And he was suggesting super slow flow. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So I usually just have a good trickle coming out of my carbon reactor, and it is great. If you're running GFO, that's a must reactor, to get back to your question, William. And if you're doing biopellets, that's a must reactor. It's got to be on all the time. But having a manifold to run all of them is better than having lots of loose pumps, because it's more pumps to maintain and take care of. Instead, you could have one that runs lots of reactors, and then if it goes down, you have a backup that you just put into place and take the one that's acting up and clean it, repair it, or buy a new one, that kind of thing. It takes up less space, adds less heat to the water, uses less electricity. That's why I like one manifold pump. And Tim Kazoo says, this is the first time I've seen a live stream. I'm usually at work on Saturdays. Well, enjoy your day off. That's awesome. And he says, congratulations on the new fish. Thank you so much. Ah, boy, when you said ex-Cali, you meant that. So Stephenville is about an hour away from me. It's past something else, Cleburne, which is on the northwest corner of Fort Worth. And in case you didn't know this, ex-Cali Tony, Frank from Frank's Tanks lives in Stephenville. And he drives all the way to the store that's right by my house, which is good for me because he's in the middle of nowhere. And I've gone to his house 2 or 3 times. And the funny thing is, because it's Stephenville, the reception for the cell phone is not that great there. And I was using CarPlay. And I just noticed as I was on the phone call with someone, no, I was listening to music. I was like, it might have been a phone call. I don't know which. But I was just living my life driving, waiting, and watching the blue dot. And at one point, I realized that dot has not moved in a while. And basically, the CarPlay had frozen because it was bad reception in that area. And I was like, dang it. So I had to basically stop whatever I was doing, pull over and, reacquire, restart the radio, get it all working. And it turned out I was like 500 feet from taking a left. So I was really glad that I caught it before I'd driven like 10 more miles past my destination and had to double back because I had lost reception. So I do like areas where you have good, strong signal, and Fort Worth definitely has that. Captain Nemo Corals says, I've been running a denitrator for 2 years now. Best thing I've ever added to the 1,100-gallon reef. Man, 1,100 gallons. How many fishes do you have? That's what I want to know. That's a huge tank. And then William says, thank you for that. I'm working on my 40-gallon breeder and didn't know which way I was going to go, so I appreciate the advice. Happy to do it. And William, make sure you let me know about your weather so we can get you some of these fishes. But I think we should wait till the food shows up from Reef Nutrition, and that way I can put it all together in your package and get it on its way to you. That'll be fun. All right. Any other questions? We've been talking for an hour and 17 minutes. It's funny. I was on Reef Bum, I guess a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. And he always has a guest on every single show. And I said, Keith, I need to get you on my channel. And he was like, oh, that'd be great. And I was like, yeah, we should talk about stuff. And he had some other guests on that day. And I was like, and I should have you on. And I said, I just do my show by myself every week. And they all said the same thing. How do you do that? How do you talk for an hour without interruption? I was like, I don't know. I have a topic. I have some notes. And I follow it. And sometimes I have slides, which I like to use. I was really hoping to have slides of the fish, so I could do it better today. But unfortunately, what ended up happening was my the upload was taking forever, and I spent all that time cleaning the glass. I spent a long time cleaning the glass today, which is kind of exciting for me. It shows I'm showing more interest in my reef again, which is good. It's a mental hurdle. You're like, I got to do this. I'll do it later kind of a thing. And I have not done the intense chiseling of the glass in probably 2 months, maybe 3, because I use a special blade. I work my way around every inch. I'm careful near all the silicone. I'm up along the top so there's no coralline coming down into the viewing pane. And I also flipped over a couple of corals that were the wrong side up. I accidentally broke a frag off of one of my nice colonies, when I was doing the cleaning magnet, and I saw that fall. I said, somebody would say, I would love that frag. And I put it right back in the colony where it belongs because I'm a hoarder instead of a seller. I'm looking forward to just continuing to work on my reef and remove more of the stray anemones that have amassed in there and enjoy these fishes and planting corals in the reef to grow into something beautiful again. I mean, my reef's not hideous. It's not ugly, but I've seen prettier ones out there than mine. So the next time we do a video, or maybe I'll just shoot a video and stick it on YouTube here, like a 10-minute upload, just a short one. That will be the right coloration, so it's not the crazy blue. But I'll tell you, this tank looks its best at noon, at 12 o'clock, because it's deep blue and the corals are just glowing. And I know it never looks good on camera, but it's so good to my eye. And I love that moment. And I was shooting this at 1:30, and the tank was more normal but it's still, it's too blue for the iPhone, as you can see. I just didn't want to put the orange gel on front because then it looks so pale. It just looks wrong. I need to find that sweet spot where it looks perfect. And then I'll get you guys that uploaded, to where you can enjoy it too, because it's really nice. The elegance on the far right, I never talk about it. That was a captive bred elegance coral. I've had it for over 3 years. It's done really well. Now, right above my little talking box I'm in, there's a coral under that tilefish that is 100% dead. It was a tongue coral that I bought from Frank for probably it was probably 5 or 6 inches long. It is easily 14 inches at this point, and I unfortunately lost it during the last year. There was a problem in my tank where the ICP test said I had tungsten, which I never did find the source of. I checked everything and never found it, but I lost a lot of corals during that time, and this one kind of hung in there. And then over the last, I'd say the last 3 months, it just slowly eroded all the way across, and I lost it. So I'm going to take it out. I'm going to bleach it. I'm going to put it on the dresser behind me here because I've had it forever, and it's one of those really pretty coral skeletons. So I might as well keep it instead of getting rid of it because it's a big chunk of calcium carbonate. Also, I will show you this really quick. This right here is a sunfish, and they make no sense to me. And I think that I got this at Reef stock. It was in one of the vendors' booths. So this is what a sunfish looks like. It is the weirdest fish ever. I think they call it mola mola. And I was like, I finally understand what this fish looks like, because the thing's enormous, like 4 feet. I'm talking like 4 feet tall, and it's all bony. And I think whales eat these things. And I'm like, it's just the weirdest fish. I'm like, now at least I can look at it and understand what this fish is because it makes no sense. I told Alex, my friend who scuba dives all the time, please film me this stupid fish from every angle because my brain can't process what I'm looking at. And every time I see it, it's so weird. And, sometimes you see them pull it up on the side of a boat because it gets caught accidentally, and they always throw it back because nobody wants it because it's not tasty apparently. But here's a sunfish. So I think I'm saying that right. That's it. We're done. You have learned about how I added 13 fish to my reef in 1 day, and you've seen that they're not killing each other, which is great news. And you've heard my plan to keep the water healthy so that they don't just die of nitrate poisoning. Not that that's a thing, but yeah, I'm still on top of things. I'm working on it, and I'm excited to see all this activity in my tank. It was actually kind of a little bit drab. I used to have Anthias, and I haven't. I used to have more pajama cardinals, and I'm down to one. They just slowly over time, I've had them for 10 years, and I'm down to a single one. And by the way, the new Bengai that went in has been buddying up with a pajama, and the pajama is buddying up. I mean, it's like, are they going to breed? They're not, but they're hanging out together like a pair, which is kind of fun. I like that too. And hopefully, the whitetails will decide to tolerate each other, and also that the purple tang will find its footing and, do fine. It's not, like cowering in fear of death. It's just saying, hey, I'm here, and the other fish are like, we don't really like it. Some of the other fish don't like it. But at the same time, I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it's going to be okay. So I would like to have a guest on the show at some point, so I have someone to talk with. That would be fun. But for now, you guys just keep getting me because that's how this channel is run. But I always try to think of things that I can share with you. It will help you in your reef keeping experience. And if you learned anything today, it's that you can use more than one safety stop at a time. And if you need, by the way, these are only $5. They're not expensive. So if you're buying fish from your store and putting them directly in your tank with no treatment whatsoever, you should at the very least be doing safety stop. I have a 10-minute video on this channel that teaches you exactly how to use it. It's super easy. I've been using it forever. The only rule, well, there's 2 rules. You can't use it on a fish that has no scales. That's very important. And you can't use it with a fish covered in ick. It literally says on the packaging, do not put an ick-covered fish in this product. It'll kill the fish. But if you are just buying fish that look healthy, but you're not certain that they're parasite-free, you can put them through safety stop. You can put them in a bucket like this with an air stone. You can get one of my lids on top to keep the fish from jumping out accidentally during the treatment. You can see how the fish is doing. Like if you use a normal bucket lid, you have to keep lifting the lid to look inside. But with this, I can just look and I can see what they're doing. So it's a nice solution. These lids right here are $29. And this right here is not for airline tubing, even though you could. Originally I thought, run the tubing here, put some more tubing on the bottom with an air stone, and that way it stays, like a rigid piece. But I have a notch here where you can put airline tubing and the cord for the heater. So this is really more like a handle. Just an easy way to hold on to it, to lift it out of the bucket. And it works really well. And if you say, hey, Mark, I want one for a 5-gallon bucket, let me know in an email, and I will go do some measurements, and I will make one that's a larger radius that will fit a 5-gallon bucket for those of you that want to safety stop in a bigger bucket. But I just find the 2-gallon to be so convenient because half of this bucket is 1 gallon, and I need 1 gallon for safety stop. If I have to get a 5-gallon bucket, I have to figure out what 1 gallon is. That's more of an estimate. This one, I just know. And these buckets, by the way, come from Lowe's. 2-gallon buckets are easy to find. And also, if you are a lady reefer, and I'm not saying this to be sexist, I just thought ladies would like it. I noticed when I was at Lowe's last week, they have a 5-gallon pink bucket, and I kind of wanted one. So it's not just for girls. I mean, guys might like a pink bucket too. I kind of want one. I don't need a pink bucket, but I probably will buy one this week just because I think it's funny. So look. It's water test Saturday. If you haven't tested your water yet, please do. Stay on top of your water parameters. Check them frequently. I was just talking with my friend Chris. His tank had crazy low alkalinity. So I quickly told him, what to add to get it up to a normal level. And then, he says, well, I still got to mix up the solution for my doser, and I got to get my doser hooked up and all that. Anyway, he did it all. And next thing, his alkalinity was way too high. And so I've been asking, well, what is it now? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, please test. So, if you have doubts about any numbers in your tank, test more frequently because that's how you stay ahead of things going wrong. And if you're not checking things, like my frag system that I've complained about on this channel so often, there's nothing in it but algae. And not much algae because I've left the lights off on that tank for about 4 weeks now. But there's a little bit of algae just from the cast off from the light of the reef hitting that tank. But they're not, the radions over that tank have been off. So anyway, I checked the salinity of that tank, and it was like 1.021. Why is it so low? I have no idea because I haven't done anything with that tank. But I'm going to have to top it off with salt water for a while to get it back up to 1.026 if I want to put some frags in there. But I really just want to tear it down and build a new tank. That's what I want to do. So we'll see. We'll see. But in the meantime, that's where we are for this week. I hope you guys have a great weekend. And I should see you again next weekend. Bye, guys.